Safety meeting. Tonight's meeting, we are going to, okay, no worries. Testing, 1, 2. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Common Council Public Safety Committee meeting. Tonight's meeting, we are going to be interviewing 2 candidates for the CPRB. Joining me tonight are council members and committee members Mark Robinson, Deirdre Brody, John Williamson, and myself, Tom Hoey, and I'm being chair tonight. And we're also joined by Common Council President Kelly Kimbrough. And we're also joined tonight by Garrett Schaff and the Executive Secretary for the CPRB by Lynn. With that, we will go ahead and I have no water, but I have James Chaney as the top on my list of people to interview. And Mr. Chaney, you can come through this way.
Good evening. So
Good
everyone
evening.
in your perspective,
So, Mr. Chaney, how we usually do it, we have some questions we'll ask, but why don't you just give us some background, tell us who you are, where you live. You don't have to give the exact address, but the general area. And what, you know, and then we'll have questions. I'll get more specific questions, but go ahead and start.
Officially, my name is James Chaney. I am a part of Albany City School District. I have been employed by the school district for a total of 24 years. In that, I have been blessed to be in a position where I've accomplished School-Related Professional of the Year and also National Education Association nominee for New York State. In that, and of that, I've also participated in certain programs and community outreach programs and things of that nature, and hopes to help our community and also our children and adults to be able to communicate with each other and also promote different programs within Albany City. At this present time, I would like to say I am a homeowner. Being a homeowner on the south end, I saw reconstruction and things of that nature that I am hoping to make the city better. But in that and of that, I am also a avid person in making things happen throughout Albany City.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chaney. So I'm going to start, and we have questions that we ask every candidate, and pretty much we try to keep them the same so we can judge a little bit better. So my question is, question 1 is, how did you learn about the CPRB?
Well, literally following the campaign trail and things of that nature, I actually followed online as well. Through associates and affiliates, I found out that this position may be available.
Thank you. And next, Deirdre.
And this is a 3-part question, so I'll ask it in chunks.
Okay.
Based on your understanding of the CPRB, first, and we can go back to the first one, but first, what does the CPRB do? Why is the CPRB important? And what do you believe to be some of the challenges the CPRB is currently experiencing? So if you want to go back to the first one first, what does the CPRB do? And you can repeat them to the others when you're done.
It's actually an agency that was designed to be able to have the ability to, I want to say best, as review community complaints regarding to allegations, misconduct of employees of the Albany Police Department.
And second, why is the CPRB important?
It is very important as the conduit or conduit to make sure that the community feels safe, beyond the community feeling safe, that our police department also has a capability of doing their job at their best ability.
And what do you believe to be some of the challenges the CPRB is currently experiencing?
For the most part, legalities and making sure that we dot our I's and cross our T's and that everyone is treated fairly and receive the processes or due process across the board.
Sorry, just to clarify, those are the concerns you see the CPRB adjudicating within the police force, or are those that you see the CPRB having within itself?
Within itself.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And next up, we have John.
Good evening, Mr. Cheney. How you doing? Thank you for coming.
Good evening.
My question is that what made you apply for being a CPRB member?
Well, in the past, I've followed the history of Albany and the conduct of a lot of our police agencies, and I feel that if I can make a change, I would like to make a change because I see a lot of our children growing up and having to have encounters with our local police department. And in and of that, I've also seen a lot of our police department agencies come out, help our children with identification, clean up the actual area, and become one as liaison officers within the school district.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mark?
Thank you. And again, thank you, Mr. Cheney, for coming out tonight. My question to you is, what does the term independent means to you as it relates to the CPRB operations?
Well, an independent agency that would actually give an opportunity to be a subdivision of itself, to be able to help figure out and collect information according to what the laws say should be done and are done within Albany City District. And if I can clarify that, I would actually have to say that it's an agent independent of itself, not dealing with or working for the police department, but we actually work in order to help the police department do their job better.
Thank you.
So, city law says that the CPRB, which is Community Police Review Board, is under the oversight of the Common Council, with independent day-to-day operations under the direction of a program director, and that the program director takes some actions at the direction of the Community Police Review Board itself. Understanding both those requirements, and this is a three-part question again, what does the oversight of the Common Council mean to you?
The oversight of the Common Council would be those individuals that are responsible for managing specific lawmakers and the community.
Okay, and how do you envision the role of the program director in this context?
I would actually have to say that we are dependent upon those individuals to guide us, to make sure that we are following all rules and regulations, laws, and abilities to be able to conduct ourselves.
Okay, and then the final of this question is, how would you like to see the CPRB act and make decisions as one collective body, as separate members who make decisions alone, or a mix of the two?
I would like to say that it could be a mix of the two, but I strongly lean toward the collective. Voting ensures community accessibility, providing checks and balances against individuals' bias, and carries a unified, legit purpose for all of us.
Thank you. Deirdre?
Credibility is very important to the work of the CPRB. Do you believe that following required processes and procedures are influential in building credibility for the CPRB? And if not, why, or what would you see as more important?
I do see it to be important, yes.
Do you care to explain a little bit more? Sorry.
Okay. Yes, in essence, I don't feel that I need to reinvent the wheel. There were individual mentors that have come before me that know what is needed and what could be done. If there was a process to change, it would be done according to how they feel. So with me having the capability of being here, I definitely would say I'd follow suit.
Okay, and Mark?
Independence is very important to the work of the CPRB, especially as it relates to addressing complaints. Understanding this, how would you protect your independence as a board meeting, as a board member, if you encounter an incident outside of your work on the CPRB in which you believe that an officer's conduct was concerning, problematic, or improper?
Well, strongly, I'd be governed by certain rules and regulations in my conduct, and for no reason am I to impede the officer from conducting his investigation or her investigation or their investigation. And literally, I would stand down and do a report as deemed necessary and turn those reports into the correct governing bodies.
And John, number 8.
Again, Mr. Cheney, thank you very much. I'm just gonna read a question for you. This right here is very important, I believe, to me, to all the applicants, as far as that, that are applying for the position. So just hear me out and take a minute or two and think about it. It says, how and where have you been involved in the community, but I want to say in your community, enter in Albany or elsewhere?
Initially, I have participated in several facets of athletics. I've worked over at Siena College several years, 18 to be exact, as a basketball coach during their summer programs. Throughout that, I've also worked in Albany City School District, producing different programs so that these children may have things to do after school or even before school. Also in our community, as far as doing cleanup programs and working with other agencies to do so, attending certain meetings that govern anything from parks and recreations to cleaning up our neighborhoods to do what we need to do. I would like to say that as much as I've done nothing at all, because the fight never stops. We have to be consistent in what we do. So as far as I can say, I've been on the forefront, but there's so many before me.
All right. Thank you, I appreciate it.
All right, so, I'm sorry, go ahead. Wait, you're going to add one?
No, there's no.
Yes, it's you. Thank you.
All right, I think, sorry for the confusion. And just to wrap up this section of the questions, do you have any personal, professional, or any other relationships with current or former CPRB members?
I do not.
Thank you.
All right, so at this point of the interview, I think we'll continue on, and then you'll have a chance to ask us questions. But the next part of this is we're going to hand it over to Garrett for the members' expectations. Is that okay? And he'll explain that, and then we'll go on. Thank you, Garrett.
Yes, sir. I'm asking these questions because they're a little bit more technical, and I'm more familiar with the information. The CPRB meets at 6 p.m. on the second Thursday of every month, and meetings can range from 15 minutes to several hours. Do you commit to consistently attending these meetings?
I concur.
City law and CPRB bylaws and rules require CPRB members to complete a new member orientation program that is approximately 2.5 to 3 hours. When the new member and the CPRB staff can coordinate the training, however, it must be completed within 30 days of you taking your oath of office. Do you commit to completing that training?
I do.
City law and require CPRB members to complete the Albany Police Department's Community or Citizens Police Academy as a requirement of continued membership with the board. This year's academy will meet for 12 months between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. starting on September the 9th and every Wednesday, and then let's try that again. This year, the Academy will meet for 12 Wednesdays, not months. 12 Wednesdays, starting at 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., starting on September the 26th. And the final meeting will be on Tuesday, November the 24th, the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. Do you commit to completing this training program?
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Is it physical?
No, it is not. So it's
Okay.
more of an informational session that the police department puts on for the community to learn aspects of modern policing. You do have the opportunity to participate. They have all their various units, so like the mounted unit will be there. I know in the past they've let people touch the horses and climb on the horses if they wanted to, but you're not going to be physically doing defensive tactics or anything like that. It's more theory than than
I
practical.
agree. I agree.
Okay. City law and CPRB bylaws and rules require absolute confidentiality with respect to confidential or privileged information received during your membership, which will essentially be every aspect of complaint work. Do you commit to maintaining the required confidentiality?
I do.
CPRB law requires members to conduct themselves at all times in a manner that will maintain public confidence in the fairness, impartiality, and integrity of the CPRB and refrain from making any prejudicial comments with respect to the CPRB, complainants, or police officers. Do you commit to meeting this requirement?
I do.
When APD's Office of Professional Standards provides the CPRB with their completed summary of investigation report, the CPRB must complete a timely review. This review should occur in less than 60 days, but must occur in no more than 120 days. Understanding the CPRB's staff supports the complaint review process and that most reviews take less than an hour to complete. Do you commit to completing complaint reviews in a timely manner?
I do.
CPRB members are assigned subcommittees like the Investigations Committee, the Community Engagement Committee, Public Official Liaison Committee to assist in the member-driven operations. These committees meet as frequently as once every 2 weeks or as little as once a year. Do you commit to serving on at least one committee and attending the required meetings?
I do.
And at the time of your application, you should have, on the information on how to submit your application for membership, there should have been information regarding a background check. The Common Council does not believe a prior criminal conviction is an automatic disqualification to serve on the CPRB, but rather the facts and circumstances of any conviction are the determining factor. To better assess the required reputation for fairness, integrity, and responsibility, you will be required to complete a criminal check and employment history check. Do you consent to have that check done?
I do.
And is there anything in your background check that would call into question your reputation for fairness, integrity, or responsibility?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And I don't recall, Chair Hoey, if you asked, but
No, I go ahead and do them. I kind of skipped over that section, and I didn't realize it till you started below. But city law requires that CPRB members reside in the city of Albany. And what street do you live on, but you already kind of told us, so we're okay with that. City law requires that CPRB members possess a reputation for fairness, integrity, and responsibility, and have demonstrated an active interest in public affairs and service. Please provide an example of how you meet this qualification.
I literally live in the old Philip Livingston School building. I reside there, even though I own property down on the south end. I am shared between two residents, so sometimes I go down there and I take care of downtown, and I actually betwixt the two. As far as community service,
Yes, and you talked about that. Go ahead.
okay. So as far as community service, we do outreach. I actually have my own non-for-profit called Point of Empowerment. And what we have done with Point of Empowerment, there's actually videos out there, and you can see them. The Power of Giving, Episode 1, Anna, where we provide different forms of medical processes for different people to help them along. We also managing going out and doing outreach with giving out clothing, food, and one of my biggest assets is my time. So I actually give my time to a lot of other organizations to make sure that we are able to do community service.
And then the last thing is, city law prohibits any city employees and their immediate family members and any former APD employee and their immediate family members from being on the CPRB. Are you an immediate family member or a current city employee or former APD employee?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. It's time for you to turn it around and ask us questions.
Okay. With this being said, have we ever had anyone who has been on my level physically challenged working with your organization?
No. And we appreciate that you stepped up, really.
Thank you.
I do want to assure you that the building that the CPRB actually works out of, which is 175 Central, is fully accessible.
Okay.
Even though we're on the 5th floor. So accommodating somebody that needs accessibility is not an issue for the board.
And the only reason to rhyme, the reason why I say that is I spend ample time here if it's getting permits and talking and being with other groups or individuals or stating complaints or what have you. I noticed that this building, as much as I would say we needed the construction, in the past few months, it was very difficult for me to park here, also with snow and things of that nature. So that's where that question came from. Another question, do we have any complaints against us as an organization for not being civil or taking a step up?
Yes, there has been lawsuits by Council 82, which represents the police officers. And we will be faced with that, but the city, represents us.
Okay.
Will represent the CPRB. Do you have anything to add to that, Garrett?
Other than the current litigation that's on appeal, that's
Right.
been going on for several years, I'm not aware of any formal complaints about the operations of the CPRB, but we do receive anecdotal individual complaints that come directly to me, and I work to resolve them. If I'm not able to resolve them, I reach out to city partners and/or board membership to get the resolution. We've made significant progress in the last year in slowly rebuilding our reputation with the community in terms of responsiveness and communication, because that was definitely something that I think has been lacking over time.
Okay.
And just to give you a
I'm sorry.
background, and, this is a good opportunity to jump in here, and the CPRB used to be underneath the Albany Law School, and they decided that they didn't want to house the CPRB anymore. So we did put out some RFPs, at least two, to try to get somebody else to take on the taking care of housekeeping for the CPRB, and we couldn't find it. So the idea was to bring them underneath the council, because you couldn't bring them underneath the mayor's office because the police department's under it, and there's a conflict of interest. With that, some of the former members of the CPRB felt that it was overreach by the council to control the CPRB. And that's why you notice the questions we asked. Is it independent?
Right.
What you do. And that's why we put it, because we want to just make sure you get you the money that you need and make sure you're spending the citizens' money, taxpayers' money correctly. And that's the only oversight that we really do. But as far as looking at cases and deciding the cases, that's the way it is. So we also had put two people for 2 years in a row. We appointed somebody to the CPRB, and one of them, there was bad. We did a rough background check locally, like New York. We didn't look down in Florida, and there was problems, and the person ended up resigning. And then we had another person apply, just the last one, with a criminal record, which, like we said, isn't the whole thing, but they never told us, and it showed up, and the Times-Union wrote, really on top of us on it. So that's why we're being very careful who we appoint. It's going to be a full background check, and that's the reason. I just want to give you an idea. Now, we did ask you questions about, and we'll be asking the next applicant about, what does the CPRB, we want to know what you think, but you're going to get fully trained if you're on this board, you will be fully trained, and then you're going to do that long training in the fall. So we're going to teach you, and when I say we, the collective, you're going to be shown how to, look at film and see for yourself and make decisions based on the evidence that you're given. So I just wanted to give you that. It's a good opportunity because, we hit you a lot of questions like, well, what's that about? So that's what it's about. And you had more questions, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to jump in at that point.
No worries. I love the insight. A term. How long is the term for said position? Am I correct in saying 3 years, or?
It is three, well, it depends on the position that you're taking over. Some people resign, so there's some time left from their term. You can serve 2 3-year terms, okay? And if you say you take over somebody and they had a year left, besides those, the 6 years, you can do that extra year. And usually, and it's been practiced, that if you're on the board, you're doing a good job, you just get, you don't even have to come back in. I mean, we'd ask you to, but you don't have to go through this type of interview again. You would be just reappointed by the full council. And just to give you an idea, what the committee does is the committee will make a recommendation for the full council. So we have 5 members, 4 of them are here tonight, of the Public Safety Committee, and they'll make a recommendation to the full council, and we would ask you to come in the night of the full council, just in case other members who aren't here have a chance to ask you questions. So that's to answer your question. So this open position, do you know off the top of your head, Garrett, is this a 1-year, or is this to fulfill?
All 3 of the vacancies are mid-term, so the initial appointment would allow for the completion of that term, and then you would be eligible for 2 additional 3-year terms. The way the board is structured and the way the law is structured that governs the board is, once you're appointed to the board, you leave the board either through resignation or replacement. So even if your term expires, you get to stay on the board until your appointing authority fills your seat. And that's just so there is not a vacancy if the appointing authorities don't act swiftly to fill the vacancies. I do not know off the top of my head which terms there are, which terms we fall into, but there are 3, and all 3 of them are in the middle of a term.
And there's 9 members on the board. 5 of them are appointed by the Common Council, 4 of them are appointed by the mayor. Okay, so, and the mayor has all 4 appointees on now. Last year it was the opposite. We had everybody appointed, and they had 3 vacancies, but that's where we're at. So yeah, that's.
And my next question would be, being that there is so much put on this independent agency, do we have adequate individuals to help us make the right decisions, or adequate decisions, i.e., our own attorneys that are not double dipping, investigators to make sure that it's one thing to watch a video, but it's another thing to process the information of those individuals that we are actually trying to help.
Garrett, you wanna?
We are actively in the process of staffing the office, but for frame of reference, my background for almost the last decade, I've been involved in police oversight.
Okay.
Prior to coming to the city of Albany, I was in the city of Chicago, working in their oversight agency. We recently hired a new staff member, which is Braylon here. We're in the process of beginning the interviews to hire our investigators, which will allow us to in-house the investigations process.
Okay.
Previously, it has been with a contracted firm out of the city of New York. And currently, the board does not have independent counsel. However, the membership is currently reviewing responses to requests for proposals for independent counsel. In the April meeting, they unanimously agreed to postpone consideration until there's at least a 6th member that's vote eligible on the board. Hopefully, that will be in June, in July at the latest. However, in the period of time that we have not had a legal representative, an independent legal representative from the board, there have been no issues that have arisen that would require independent legal representation to address. I've been able to get the necessary support from either the council's the Common Council's legal representative, or from the Corporation Counsel's office. In addition to that, my educational training is, I have a law degree. I went to law school. I just don't have a law license. So I have a good understanding of the legal frameworks and requirements. And I'm more than willing to assist members quite regularly. We have some that come to the office for all of their complaint reviews, and I walk them through it. The ultimate plan will be that the staff of the board our primary function is to assist you to lighten your workload, because this is part-time for you and full-time for us.
So my next question would be, do all of the members, or some of the members, have some form of immunity so that there is no form of retaliation to the board itself? So if an officer just happens to know that you worked on said case, that they would try to harass or bother you?
So from a practical standpoint, Complainants and officers do not know the individual member that's assigned to the review
Okay.
up until the point of the public meeting in which that complaint is presented by the assigned member to their fellow members for a vote. All of the correspondence flows through my office or my desk and through staff, and it does not provide direct information for board membership or board members' identities. However, there will be occasions where a complainant makes a request or asks for information that the member needs to provide. I will send the request to that member. The member is more than welcome to respond directly to the complainant, or they can respond to me and I will flow that information to them. And if there is a concern, if you were to be pointed to the board about potential retaliation, first of all, that is definitely in violation of multiple policies, procedures, and even city regulations. We can potentially come up with a workaround in terms of anonymizing even the presentation of the complaints, and where maybe when we have a full complement, you're paired up with a fellow member and you present their complaints and they present your complaints or something along those lines. But that's something we can discuss if it becomes a concern. As far as I'm aware, that's never been an issue.
Yeah, and I've been, on the council for almost 9 years. I've never remember hearing that. But I am going to reach out to Council President Kimbrough, because he was a former Albany police officer. And have you ever heard of any repercussions against members of the CPRB from police officers that, We're going to protect you. We're not going to let anything happen to you, Mr. Cheney.
I appreciate that, I do. Well, I just wanted to tell you thank you, and I appreciate it. And I'll finish this question, we'll end it with this. In the event, because I did say that I would make it to all those meetings, snowstorm, inclement weather, anything to that degree, who do I contact if I'm in a situation where inclement weather or medical situations may occur?
So currently, the board does not have any officers. So once we establish officers, you're more than welcome to contact one of those three. That would be the chair, the vice chair, or the secretary. You're also more than welcome to contact the CPRB staff directly, and we will flow that information to your fellow members. Currently, without the chairs, all of the meeting coordination and stuff like that is flowing through the staff. And we understand that emergencies arise and unexpected things arise. The questions were more rooted to ensure that you were aware of the obligations, not an expectation that you have 100% attendance, because that can't happen. People have vacations, people have other events pre-planned, and that's understandable as well.
Well, I thank you all, and I really appreciate you. If you have anything that you
Yeah,
need
the
from
last thing I want to tell you, there is a small stipend for the position. It's $3,000 a year, $250 a month. Have we worked out getting the paychecks kind of on time?
The process is in flux to be more efficient, and we're on the second month of that new process to see how efficient it is. So we were averaging 2 months for pay. We're trying to get it down to like 20 days at the most.
Okay.
Thank you, I really appreciate
Well,
it.
thank you, Mr. Cheney. I
Thank you.
appreciate it, and it's good to see you.
Thank you all. I appreciate you.
We're still recording, right? Okay. Thank you. And am I pronouncing your name right, Tamel?
Yes.
Great. Tamel, thank you for coming tonight for the interview. You kind of heard how we do it. We'll go through some questions and, give you a chance to ask questions, and we'll see how things work out. All right. So I'll start with, how did you learn about the CPRB?
What was the question?
How did you find out, what made you, how did you find out about, how did you learn about the CPRB?
How did I learn about the CPRB? I've been involved in grassroots organizing in Albany for a long time. I was involved in the protest of 2020 involving George Floyd that led to the community calling for this organization. So I've been involved and aware from its inception.
Great. And Deirdre?
Thank you for coming tonight. So I have a three-part question. I'll read through the whole thing, and then we can go back
Sure.
to the beginning if that's helpful. So based on your understanding of the CPRB, what does the CPRB do? Why is the CPRB important? And what do you believe to be some of the challenges the CPRB is currently experiencing? So if we want to head back to the top, it's what does the CPRB do?
Whew. Okay, so the CPRB as an organization made up of concerned community residents that are frustrated with the relationship that the police have had with Albany residents, and they want to be actively involved in changing that relationship and the conditions that are generated as a result.
Okay, and the second one was why is the CPRB important?
It's important because I believe that policing, not just here in Albany, well, in this country, but in Albany, is a public health crisis. And I believe that it should be treated as a public health crisis with requiring an equity-focused intervention of some sort. We know the history of policing in this country, and we know that it's tied directly to the shackles of black bodies that were brought here as slaves. So we know that the early slave patrols and stuff were the outline for what we know now as present-day policing. And we know that the structure of these institutions have not been favorable for black people or people of color, but black people in particular. So this is necessary in order for us to try to, in some way, balance out what's been an unprecedented lopsided power on the side of the police.
All right, thank you. And the third part, what do you believe to be some of the challenges the CPRB is currently experiencing?
Well, for one, most of the people that are well-intentioned, that want to be on these boards and want to get involved, their participation usually generates from that, from a place of good intentions. They've seen some really atrocious behavior and they want to get involved because, their conscience won't allow them to stay quiet anymore. But what they don't realize is this is politics, and nobody's prepared for the vitriol and the aggressive nature of opposition. And we have people who don't agree with the development of a community police review board. We know that the unions, which is something that we don't even consider when we have well intentions, that there's other forces at play that are very strong, very well funded, and they have historically, not just here, but around the country, challenged everyone that tried to create a community review board. So I believe that some of the challenges is not understanding the reality of politics and how vicious it is. And people will do nothing to hold on to their piece of the pie.
John?
Thank you very much, Sharon. Thank you for coming, Tamir. Appreciate it. Question I wanted to ask you What made you apply for being a CPRB member?
Because, like I said, I do a lot of community activism, and I'm also a victim of this system. So just my lived experience enough in itself is what made me want to get involved. Plus, I happen to know that statistically, Albany is a very, very bad place for black people to live. How do I know this? Because the Urban Institute, which is a nonprofit organization, did a report, and they reviewed 273 cities as it relates to black people, and the study was about looking at how adept a city was in incorporating black people into the economic prosperity. And that was where they was gauging how viable these cities are. And they found that Albany did so bad on this list that, like I said, it was 273. Albany registered at 234 as it relates to being a problem where African Americans live, and by extension, other people of color. So this represents an immediate attack on the survival of this group. So we need programs like this. They need to be empowered, they need to be organized, and we need to be together. We need to create coalitions so that we can begin to address things that have become systemic, and it's been around in Albany for a long, long time. Albany is the most segregated city in the country, definitely in New York State. The most segregated. That segregation leads to the problems that require a community police review board.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Mark?
What does the term independent mean to you as it relates to the CPRB operations?
I believe it means that we should have the ability to look at, assess, evaluate whatever complaints come before us without having to worry about any social pressure or political pressure from other outside agencies or forces that might be opposing us.
City law says that the CPRB is under the oversight of the Common Council with independent day-to-day operations under the direction of the program director, and that the program director takes some actions at the direction of the CPRB. Understanding both these requirements, so this is a three-part question. A, what does the oversight of the Common Council mean to you?
I understand that creating an organization isn't easy, and we just can't do it out of thin air. So I know that coming from the university and then trying to reestablish yourself somewhere, you didn't have no infrastructure. You didn't have a couch, you didn't have a refrigerator, you didn't have any of the things that a home would need in order to be comfortable. So yes, you're gonna need an umbrella, somebody that's established, that has infrastructure, that can help you do the things that you couldn't do because you wasn't established. So that's just something that had to be done. You had to find a resting place with people who had the infrastructure already in place. So that's something that just is an administrative thing that had to be done. Most non-for-profits are set up the same way. When they're trying to provide a service, they have to have a mother organization to handle it. So that's basically how I see that.
And then the second part of that question is, how do you envision the role of the program director in this context? That, the program director is going to take actions at the direction of the CPRB.
The program director works for the Common Council?
He has two hats, the Common Council for the financial end, but the day-to-day operations is underneath the CPRB.
I mean,
they come up with bylaws and stuff.
That has to, a portion of it is going to overlap only because they represent the house of, where it's, and they have to answer to someone. And plus you have to have the structure in place, because the whole point of this is to get the community, to have some level of trust again. So although that's an added responsibility on them, but at the same time, to have somebody on the Common Council who's knowledgeable about the process makes it even easier because, you know.
And then the last part of this question is, how would you like to see the CPRB act and make decisions as one collective body, or as separate members who make decisions alone, or a mix of the two?
Repeat the question.
How would you like to see the CPRB act and make decisions? The first choice would be as one collective body, or the other choice could be as separate members who make decisions alone, or as a mix of the two.
I mean, I think that's like an efficiency question. You know, how can we best operate to get things done? But ultimately, what are we talking about? We're talking about having the courage and the patience and the wherewithal to look at facts. Can you objectively look at facts and review them based on what you know to be the evidence or the procedures and see any inconsistency? You know, if you can do that consistently, I mean, then we shouldn't have any problems. But again, if everybody's working together, that shouldn't be a problem.
All right, and Deirdre?
I'm on the wrong.
6.
Yeah, sorry. Credibility is very important to the work of the CPRB. Do you believe that following required processes and procedures are influential in building credibility for the CPRB? If not, what do you see as more important?
Well, this organization was created to do the very same thing you're asking. So following procedures is something that we have to do because if there's no rules, you know, what are we talking about? Procedures are important. I don't believe in being hogtied by policies and procedures, but as long as these policies and procedures are put in place to ensure the integrity and the honesty of the process, then we have to follow it because that's the example that we're trying to set. So it's definitely important. And if for whatever reason we feel we can't, then we can convene if we might need to change the rule. But until then, yeah, you got to follow.
Yeah, and just to say that it's the CPRB comes up with their own bylaws and sets the rules up, just like you just said. So if something's not working, that they have the ability to change it. Mark, number 7.
Independence, I repeat, independence is very important to the work of the CPRB, especially as it relates to addressing complaints. Independence is very important to the work of the CPRB, especially as it relates to addressing complaints. Understanding this, how would you protect your independence? Understanding this, how would you protect your independence as a board member if you encounter an incident outside of your work on the CPRB in which you believe an officer's conduct was concerning, problematic, or important?
I actually have experience in this. So I used to work in Schenectady. Well, I'm not work, I was a volunteer, similar to this, for the Schenectady Human Rights Commission Jail Oversight Committee. And on the Jail Oversight Committee, we had unrestricted access into the Schenectady County Jail. This is 24-hour access. And I would go in with the team, but we would actually go into the inmate cells because one of our responsibilities was to investigate and interview human rights complaints that were filed by the inmates. They set up a hotline, 24-hour hotline, where they could call directly to the Human Rights Commission to make these complaints. But once these complaints were verbally made, then someone had to physically go in to investigate these complaints. So I was instrumental in reestablishing that Jail Oversight Committee. We actually went in And like I said, we got the statements, but in many instances, we were able to also sort of like be the bridge between problems that had occurred with officers and inmates. Officers actually submitted themselves to questioning. They allowed themselves to communicate with us, and we resolved a lot of issues informally without having to actually go through with a lot of these issues. While being in the prison, we had alarms where we had to actually be protected and took them to different areas. We've seen inmates having to be physically restrained. So I've witnessed a lot of situations where being a committee member at the time in that particular capacity, I had to allow the process to take place and restrain myself, but at the same time, catalog everything that I witnessed and follow the necessary procedures. But having that experience, I believe, definitely will prepare me for this type of interaction. I've done, you know, you having a legal background, I've done interrogatories. I've sat with different counsel, corporation counsel. I have paralegal background, so I'm familiar with a lot of the of what would necessarily take place. Although I probably wouldn't do it, but if there were people doing the investigation, I have experience and stuff in that area, so I wouldn't be flustered by anything that I see. But I would definitely, and nor, I didn't, if I seen something in the street, I wouldn't introduce myself as a title if I'm such and such and such and such either. So in order to maintain that my anonymity, you know, I would represent myself as a regular citizen just concerned.
Thank you.
John?
Yes. My final question is this in what I'm going to read to you, it's very important. All the questions are very important, but yourself, this is pertaining to you. How and where have you been involved in your community, either in Albany or elsewhere?
I've, again, committed myself to human services. It started as a result of me being harassed by the system, incarcerated by the system. Yes, I was incarcerated, but I don't wear it as a scarlet letter, because every environment that I touched, I changed. Every environment that I touched, I changed for the better. I was illegally convicted, but during that process, it made me who I am. So I'm familiar with these systems inside and outside. Inside, like I said, I was in such demand that they would take me from one prison to the next to create programs, because that's how adept I was at recognizing what these problems were, and that most of the people looked like me. So I knew I could be instrumental very early in solving some of these problems. So I became a teacher immediately, teaching young men how to get their GED. I also created the first domestic violence program in prison for men, which doesn't even exist on the outside, because most of the programs are designed to protect what they believe to be women. But because men are considered to be the #1 victimizer, you would think there would be a program to help the victimizer, but there isn't. So I helped to create that in the prison. I helped to create literacy programs. We created sign language programs, and we tried to figure out ways that we could create programs without any money being involved. Because whenever you try to create a program, the first thing you hit you with is funding. So I was very good at creating programs that didn't require a lot of funding. So I've been in the community. We have a lot of construction equipment that sits around. So I found ways to create programs around allowing young people to get on these caterpillars and stuff and learn how to use the gears and stuff. That can be applied later on to construction. They're not being used. We have people who are that are retired, that have a wealth of knowledge and information that we just haven't tapped into yet. So my ideas come from places like that. I'm very good at thinking outside the box and creating bridges where there might not have been none. And also, I do a lot of work with the police, actually. So this program isn't just about the community, it's about the officers themselves, because it protects everybody. Because if there's transparency, the officers feel more safe. But we have to acknowledge the fact that there is a culture that's been created that kind of shuts them off from the community. Like I said, I've participated in community protests. As a member of Albany SNUG, I created the trauma response, which is every time there was a shooting response in Albany, we had to, and this is, if you're on that team, this is 24 hours, we had to respond. So 2 in the morning, if there's a shooting, we had a relationship with the police department, and we had to meet the shooting victims and their families at the hospitals, because we had to try to, the best we could, prevent any type of retaliation. So de-escalating the problem before they tried to start, I have experience in those type of trauma responses as well.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Deirdre?
And just to wrap up this section of the questions, do you have any personal, professional, or any other relationship with current or former CPRB members?
Not that I know of.
All right, city law requires CPRB members reside in the city of Albany. Or what street do you live on?
Green Street.
Ring? Green?
Green.
Correct, got it. Okay, city law requires CPRB members possess a reputation for fairness, integrity, responsibility, and have a demonstrated and active interest in public affairs and service. Please provide examples of how you meet this qualification. And I know you touched on a few of them, but these are questions, so
Well,
if you don't mind.
my current job, I work at Samaritan Hospital. Before that, I worked at Catholic Charities. And one of the things I was a 1115 waiver home health navigator for Medicaid. So you're dealing with a lot of people's personal information, a lot of people's personal history. And in that, you have to be HIPAA certified, you have to be a mandated reporter, and you have to know how to handle sensitive information. But also, you're trained also in trauma-informed care, which is extremely important, because you're going to be dealing with a lot of people who are going to be coming to you feeling broken, having not been listened to, having been ignored most of their life, and we're setting ourselves up to receive that energy. So we have to also be sensitive in how we handle these complaints and how we dismiss these complaints. We have to be very, very careful because of the trauma associated with filing a complaint in the first place. Most of the people who are victimized don't file complaints. They don't even know how to or what to do to go about filing these complaints. So when they finally do get enough courage or find a way to navigate towards these places, they have to be received in a very caring and way, and that hasn't always been the case, let me just say.
City law prohibits current city employees and their immediate family members and any former APD, Albany Police Department employee, and their immediate family members from being a CPRB member. Are you an immediate family member of a current city employee or a former APD employee?
No.
Thank you. And then the Common Council does not believe prior criminal conviction is an automatic disqualification to serve on the CPRB, but rather the facts and circumstances of any prior conviction are the determining factor. To better assess the required reputation for fairness, integrity, and responsibility, you'll be required to complete a criminal and employment history background check. Do you consent to have such a check?
Absolutely.
And will anything be discovered in your background that may call into question your reputation for fairness, integrity, and responsibility?
Absolutely not. You're going to be amazed at anything.
And I'll turn this over now to Garrett, the program director for the CPRB.
Thank you for coming this evening. The CPRB meets at 6 p.m. on the second Thursday of every month, and meetings can range from 15 minutes to several hours. Do you commit to consistently attending these meetings?
Absolutely.
City law and CPRB bylaws and rules require CPRB members to complete new member orientation, which is approximately 2.5 to 3 hours, when the new member and the staff can coordinate the training. However, it must be completed within 30 days after submitting your oath of office. Do you commit to completing this training?
Yes, I do.
City law requires the CPRB members to complete the Albany Police Department's Community or Citizens Police Academy as a requirement of membership with the CPRB. This year's academy will meet for 12 Wednesdays between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. starting on September the 9th, and the final session will be on the Tuesday, November the 24th before Thanksgiving. Do you commit to completing this training program?
Yes, I do.
City law and CPRB bylaws and rules require absolute confidentiality with respect to confidential or privileged information received during your membership, which will essentially be all complaint-related information. Do you commit to maintaining the required confidentiality?
Yes, I do.
City law requires CPRB members to conduct themselves at all times in a manner that will maintain public confidence in the fairness, impartiality, and integrity of the CPRB, and refrain from making any prejudicial comments with respect to the CPRB, complainants, or police officers. Do you commit to meeting this requirement?
Repeat that question?
City law requires CPRB members to conduct themselves at all times in a manner that will maintain public confidence in the fairness, impartiality, and integrity of the CPRB, and refrain from making any prejudicial comments with respect to the CPRB, complainants, or police officers. Do you commit to meeting that requirement?
Yes, I do.
When APD's Office of Professional Standards provides the CPRB with their completed summary report of internal investigations, the CPRB must complete a timely review. This review should occur in less than 60 days, but must occur in no more than 120 days. Understanding that review also involves presentation and a public meeting vote, and understanding that CPRB staff supports members with the reviews and that most reviews take less than an hour to complete, do you commit to completing complaint reviews in a timely manner?
Yes, I do.
And CPRB members are assigned committees like investigations, community engagement, or public official liaison to assist in the member-driven operations. These committees meet as frequently as once every 2 weeks or as little as once a year. Do you commit to serving on at least one of the CPRB subcommittees and attending the required meetings?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, sir.
And now the meeting is open for you to ask us questions, and we'll be glad to answer.
You good. Okay. Well, I don't know if it's a question, but it's definitely a statement. So I've actually participated in some of these CPRB meetings, and they're not very pleasant. I mean, they're very dry. They're not very, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. Like the person who's coming there who had a problem and is coming there believing he's going to get some kind of resolution. There's no one communicates with the person when they come in. There's no contact. It just doesn't look very personable. The way that we communicate with the residents, the issue with responding to complaints, the backlog, that's a problem. And the people who might be in that backlog do not have the confidence of the CPRB and what, if anything, is being done to address, because this is not just problematic. I mean, the pulse of the CPRB is on the line as it relates to this particular issue, because again, we are trying to create, first of all, this is uncharted territory, because this hasn't never existed before. There hasn't been oversight. So, this level of community engagement. So this is new territory of everybody. But at the same time, it's a little bit harder for people who might be, very naive of the process. But people are definitely being injured, by these inability to respond in a timely fashion.
And I want to respond to that, and I understand it, and there's no denying you are correct. You're 100% correct, but Previously, when it was underneath the Albany Law School, it was functioning, okay? But it came to the point, well, I mean, you know, I have former public safety chair and myself, we know cases were heard, stuff went through. But that's the past. We can't change the past, but moving forward, we can make sure that things are done right. And we need to build that trust. And that's why with these questions, a lot of them are talking about how do we build the community trust. But the most important thing is to fill all the seats. There's 9 members on this board. When there's only 5 like there is now, that means everybody has to do double the work. And what we're seeing, and with some former members, they felt they only wanted to work out in the community, they didn't want to review cases. So we have had problems in the past. And you notice the questions we ask, can you do this, can you do that? And that's why we're doing it. We're trying to build this organization back.
How committed are we to going back to those unresolved cases and trying
We
to
need
get some
to go
kind of
back,
resolution?
but the problem is that there's nothing, every case deserves to be looked at. And that's my feeling, and I think if I ask the committee, or if I ask the full council, everybody will agree with me. But we can't stop the new cases from coming in that have timelines. And we talked about it was 90 days and up to, you know, well, first of all, the police have to look at it, and we got to wait and get the stuff back from operations. And in the past, we've had trouble. So that's why we did do local law to change that we can now, you know, subpoena, gave us subpoena power so we can bring them in. So the thoughts are that we start with the new cases coming in that we can do something about and make recommendations, and then slowly fill up that backlog. With 9 people on the board, all working, that should be able to be done, I would say, you know, and I'll ask the program director, but my own feeling is probably within 6 months, we could probably catch up. Maybe I'm being too optimistic. Garrett?
So when I arrived a little bit more than a year ago, one of the things I identified was the backlog. And I engaged in conversations with membership at that time to come up with strategies on how to resolve the backlog of complaints, and that was unfruitful. In December of last year, on behalf of the membership of the board, a community survey was issued, specifically designed to elicit feedback and input from the community on how they would like us to address that backlog complaints. Right now, the backlog complaints are pending decisions from membership on how to proceed. Just like the selection of our service provider for legal services, that is being tabled until we get more members, so more people can have input. Currently, I can tell you in 2026, every complaint that the board has reviewed has been timely and has been within the timeframes in which the board is able to provide recommendations to the police department for consideration. That 60-day and 120-day time frame for the board to complete its review work is written into law. So if the board passes the 120th day and has not rendered their findings to the police department will proceed with finalizing the investigation. So to be clear, the complaints that are in the backlog have not been ignored or were not investigated. What has been lacking was the review in the input from the community representatives of the board, and that in itself is extremely problematic. But I have taken great steps in processes in place to help reduce that, and we are on track to be able to timely review our complaints, and membership will make a decision amongst the collective group on how to address the backlog of complaints.
Now, he mentioned leadership. It's not the leadership of the council, it's the leadership of the CPRB. And they're holding off electing officers. They have, is it chair and then a co-chair and a secretary? Is that?
Chair, vice chair, and a secretary. And at the April meeting, membership decided to table that conversation as well as conversations related to selections of our service providers because there were only 5 members present. And they knew this process was going on, so they wanted to afford the potential new members an opportunity to have a say in that selection process and that decision-making, which I think is not an unreasonable position. And as I said, the complaints that we are reviewing or that we've reviewed so far in 2026 have all been timely and within the timeframes that the police department can consider the board's recommendations. In addition to that, We have reviewed or resolved, whether that means they were deemed outside of the jurisdiction, or they were withdrawn by the complainant, or they were fully reviewed by more board members, more complaints this year than what we've taken in so far this year. So we're slowly chipping away at that backlog by just processing more than what we're taking in.
Okay, and I realize, I'm sorry, and I realize in this room, when we talk about numbers and stuff, we're not talking about, it doesn't appear that we're talking about real people.
So I'm well aware that every single one of these complaints is tied to an individual, but we have competing priorities that have to be balanced, right? The board has to balance the priority of ensuring they're meeting their legal obligations and ensuring that they're doing timely work so that their input can be considered by the police department in making final determinations on outcomes and discipline for each complaint. In addition to, we also need to ensure that the community that has been failed by the board in the past is receiving resolution to prevent that failure from occurring in the future. I understand that there may be individuals that are still awaiting final determinations by the board, but I want to be very clear from a practical standpoint in terms of how the process functions and the system is designed. Once that 120-day period passes, the board's ability to provide input on the investigation or on the outcome no longer exists. It's lost. And that's why timeliness is so important.
So to my understanding, right, the board didn't even have a quorum for quite some time. Is that correct?
So during the course of 2025, from January until July, the board elected not to conduct complaint reviews at all, which caused the backlog to significantly grow. In October, the board lost quorum, so we had no meetings in November and December. We met in January and reviewed timely complaints in January. We then had an inability to meet in February due to a member's inability to participate, so we did not have a meeting that month. We then lost quorum for the month of March. We resumed meetings in the month of April and the month of May. This last meeting, we addressed 10 complaints, all of which were timely. And in April, we addressed, I believe, I want to say 7 complaints, all of which were timely as well.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, during the time that the board didn't have a quorum and someone had a complaint issue, and their complaint couldn't have been reviewed within that time period, at that point, their complaint is on mute, and there's no way that they can reissue?
No, sir, that's incorrect. I think you,
Okay,
so.
please, that's what I'm asking for clarification.
No, I'm happy to clarify. So for when a complaint is filed, whether it's filed with the police department or with the board, the complaint comes to the board. The board has the ability to elect 3 options on how to proceed with that, 4 options on how to proceed with that complaint. If the complainant and the officer agree to mediation and the complaint is deemed to be accessible or acceptable for mediation based off of specific criteria, it will go through a mediation program that is in development. We are actually in the process of issuing a request for proposal for mediation providers. In addition to that, the complaint will potentially can come in, it will be reviewed by membership, and membership will make the decision to allow the police department to conduct an investigation beginning to end, draft a final report, provide that report to us. Once we receive that report, that's where the time frame for the review is triggered, not when the complaint is filed. The other option is that the board can elect to monitor a complaint. If the board monitors a complaint, a representative of the board on staff or a contract provider will work with OPS through the entire investigation process. And then the only areas where we will separate with that working with OPS is in terms of drafting the final report or the outcomes. The final option is for the board to launch an independent investigation. That requires a majority consensus of the board at a public meeting to launch that investigation. When the investigation is launched, the board is responsible for gathering all of its evidence on its own. We can do that by requesting documents from the police department, but we have to locate all of our witnesses and all of our individuals to gather that evidence. And those investigations historically with the board have been reserved for high-profile media incidents or instances in which there was significant bodily harm or significant misconduct.
I'm saying, just for clarification, what I'm asking right? If someone filed a complaint while the board was on no because it wasn't a quorum or for some reason they decided not to hear complaints at a specific time, that complaint will still be heard.
Provided that the 120-day period that is established by law has not lapsed. And that time, the clock does not start ticking on that until we are notified by the police department they have completed their internal investigation.
And from understanding you talk, from hearing your time lapse of the board not having quorums or not having meetings, I'm more than sure that 120 days have lapsed from complaints that have been filed with the CPRB.
Mr. Robinson, it's not from the date of filing that 120 days starts. The 120-day time begins once the police department...
Understood, but what I'm asking you, if any complaints have been filed, could not be reviewed for the fact that it passed that 120-day mark?
Yes,
that's the question I'm looking for an answer for.
Yes, there are multiple complaints, almost, I want to say, more than 100 that have been filed that have passed the 120-day review period. However, the vast majority of that 100 complaints passed that 120-day review period in the first half of last year or before then.
And they don't have no recourse, refiling or anything. It's just that now their complaints will be, you know what I'm saying, annoyed because
no, sir, their
complaints did not meet the 120-day mark.
No, sir, their complaints were not ignored. So the oversight system in the city of Albany consists of two entities. It consists of the Internal Affairs or Office of Professional Standards at the police department, which is still to this day the primary investigative arm of the oversight system, even with the board's investigative powers and the board.
Again, the people that's filing these complaints
Sir,
with the CPRB, I'm just saying, are you giving them, are you in constant conversation with them and letting them know the status of their complaints?
I have been in communication with complainants. When I arrived, one of the hurdles that the board was facing was regular, constant communication and status updates to complainants. I have resolved those issues, and anytime a complainant contacts me relating to their status of their case, I provide them a status update. And with the newer complaints that have been filed since I've instituted all the processes that are still timely, I am constantly providing the necessary updates in active communication with those complainants.
Okay.
Also, the police has done, internal affairs have looked at these cases. So if they filed it with the CPRB, you pass it on to ops, right?
Okay,
So they are being looked at?
Filing of a complaint, it doesn't matter whether you file it with the police department or with the board. It goes through the oversight system. The oversight system consists of the Office of Professional Standards and the Community Police Review Board. For the vast majority of complaints that the board that are filed, the Office of Professional Standards is the primary investigative authority for that. The board's role in the vast majority of complaints is to review the quality of the investigation that was conducted by OPS and to ensure that the findings are supported by the evidence and applicable policies and procedures. That's the vast majority of the work that the board does. In those instances in which the board fails to complete their review within the 120-day time frame, the police department is still finalizing the disciplinary investigation. The only thing that is lost by the board failing to complete their review within 120 days is the board's ability to make a recommendation to the chief of police about a finding on an allegation or discipline recommendation related to suspension or to a sustained allegation. The complaint in and of itself is still being investigated and is still being addressed. It is just not receiving the community oversight or the community input of it, but APD is still finalizing disciplinary outcomes, and that is done so we do not lose the ability to discipline officers, because under the collective bargaining agreement, discipline must be meted out or must be provided to an officer within 365 days of the date of the incident that that gave cause to the complaint to occur. So if the police department had to wait until the CPRB completed its review before it could finalize discipline, the vast majority of complaints that are in our backlog, some as old as 2022, are going to be too old for the office to impose the police department to impose any discipline. In addition to that, the backlog that exists is not solely for a lack of timely review on behalf of the board membership. Some of that backlog was inherited from the police department. My understanding in speaking with members of the Office of Professional Standards is for the most of 2025, they were spending a lot of time working to reduce their backlog of complaints that they have, and they've successfully done that. So we're getting more timely work out of them, and what's happening in 2026 is we're trying to institute processes to ensure that we are doing more timely work as well.
John, I see your hand up. We're interviewing somebody. Is it related to the interview, or is it?
Yes, because I was just as confused, so I didn't understand. So when the gentleman was asking the question, because it aligned with what I was thinking, I didn't say anything because I needed to get the response from you. But I was just as confused because just from personal experience. So the police are still being allowed to essentially make this recommendation and stuff. We are deferring to them, but we are allowed, once they do their report, they're gonna send it to us. We're gonna review what they reviewed.
No, sir. We do not defer to the police department. The process and the way the system is structured is the board has 4 options: mediation, review, monitoring, or investigations. Monitoring or investigations require a vote by the majority of the board to do that. The vast majority of our complaints are just reviewed, which is what this board has historically done, is reviewed complaints. In order for us to monitor complaints or investigate complaints, we need to either have service contract providers to provide those services, which unfortunately the contract that the board had expired at the end of December and has not been renewed yet, or we have to have staff on hand to serve as investigators and monitors, which is something that I'm working on currently, and I'm trying to get staff in place by the end of July at the latest. From a practical standpoint, right now the board has no capacity to independently investigate anything because we don't have a contract service provider or the staff on hand. However, when the board does conduct a review of the investigation completed by the police department, we are not just reviewing the document they give us. We are accessing every single piece of evidence that they have. We are reviewing and ensuring that they not only is the outcomes that they've determined based off of that evidence supported by the evidence itself, but we are also ensuring that they successfully and thoroughly investigated the complaint. And if we have concerns about the quality of that investigation, we are empowered to return that investigation to them. But currently, we are in...
So when we review what they send over, right, which is when that 120 days starts, right?
Correct.
What they're sending over is their fact-finding
Correct.
information.
Correct.
That
And that is where the purview of the board comes in on how to handle specific complaints. I think it's very important to have a understanding of where we are in terms of the history of this board. We are in a rebuilding phase of this board. Transitioning from the law school to the city was a shock to the system that resulted in members leaving. When those members left, a significant amount of institutional knowledge walked out the door with them. That institutional knowledge was very limited in being written down anywhere. So a lot of these processes are being redeveloped or rebuilt based off of conversations with others or professional experience in this field. Once the board has either a contract investigations provider or staff on hand, the board can elect to investigate every single complaint itself. The board can elect to monitor every single complaint. Just right now, where we are in the process of rebuilding, we do not have the ability to do that. So we are working within the structure of the system that we have to ensure that we are still affording an opportunity for the community to have input in complaint outcomes. But once we have board membership, we have officers and leaders in place, or officers in place for the board, we have our internal committees reestablished, which currently do not exist, and we have either an investigations firm to provide contracted support, or we have in-house staff that are investigators. The board then will be able to fully decide whether or not they want to monitor every complaint or investigate every complaint.
Okay, just from my personal experience, I have a case from 2022,
Okay.
that was ignored by the council, right? Big enough to launch an investigation. It was that big. The council, when they reviewed my case, didn't even realize I was sitting in the audience, for one. I had to raise my hand because they was about to dismiss it because I wasn't even there, because they didn't believe I was there. When I arrived, it had already been a backlog. I was surprised to even get the letter saying that they still knew who I was. But I came. What was uncovered was that the police, in addition to the other crimes that they did against me, they also confiscated some money that I had. The council was instrumental in helping me get the money returned. That was it. But I'm saying that to say that some of these cases that involve police contact leave a person without anything. And they're coming to you guys, coming to us, and if I was here, as a last resort. We don't know what else to do. That means the police didn't acknowledge my complaint. They didn't give me an avenue to fill out a complaint. So through the grapevine, I hear there's another way that I can probably get some kind of justice. So then I come here, and again, like I said, my contact left me homeless. Police literally drugged me out of my apartment, no knock warrant, looking for an old roommate of mine. And I've never recovered. Lost everything. Just to give you an example, I don't want to be too melodramatic, but imagine sitting here right now and not being allowed to go back to your home. Ever. You remember when you put everything before you left the house to come here? That's what happened to me. And nobody in the city government did anything. And I went to everyone, the mayor, everyone. And I came to the CPRB believing that that was like my last lifeline. I didn't know what else to do. Like I said, I'm in a hotel with nothing, literally, because I was taken out, arrested, and then left in Albany County Jail without any resources. There's no number to call for anything like this. That's what I'm talking about. I want to put a real face on this so we can understand. And then by this body setting themselves up to be an adjudicator in a sense, that also affects clients as well. Because if there is a legal way to address it, and then the statute of limitation runs out because of the problems that's outside of their control, they can't do anything. They lose everything. They can't even get it redressed for what happened. So I'm confused when we say that the police, even after that time, can't do anything. But if we determine that a penal code violation or a civil rights violation was occurred, there shouldn't be no statute of limitation on that, regardless, right?
So I want to be clear, the work of the CPRB and the work of the Office of Professional Standards is not criminal in nature. It is administrative in nature. It is an employment investigation.
No, something criminal
hold on,
may have already, I'm just going to say.
Hold on, let me finish, because I think I can answer some of your questions. It's an employment investigation. Just like if you were working at Walgreens and they thought you were yelling at a customer, they could investigate you, right? That's essentially what the investigations are. Employment relationships between employers and employees can be governed by collective bargaining agreements or union
The collective bargaining agreement is vicious, I know.
Right, so the statute of what you refer to as the statute of limitations, that 365-day requirement is written into the collective bargaining agreement that the city entered with the police, between the police department and the union. I will tell you that independent of that agreement, state law says that discipline has to be issued within 18 months from the date of the incident. So there's not a significant difference between the collective bargaining agreement and state law. It's a loss of 6 months. It's not a loss of 50 years. In addition to that, the work of the board and whether or not the board does timely work and how that work is done is determined by the members of that board. So if the board has failed in the past or failed to meet the obligations that are required of it in the past, that is the responsibility of the membership that was in place at that time.
So if the board fully helps someone, right, comes to their aid, everything happens the way it's supposed to, you get the material from the cops, you review it, you do your own independent assessment, and then you respond to what they responded to, and you disagree, what happens then?
The board has the ability to make recommendations to the chief of police saying, we disagree with you on this investigation. This is what we believe the outcome should be, and this is the reason why. That disagreement has to be supported by the evidence and applicable policies and procedures.
And while that's happening, what's happening to the person who made the complaint?
They're waiting for the process to play out. Just like any other governmental process, everything takes time. Unfortunately, there is not a swift resolution to any of these problems. Just like if you were to be arrested, having a resolution to any criminal charge takes time. It's not an instantaneous resolution. Part of that is because of inefficiencies. Part of that is to ensure that everybody is being or receiving the necessary processes and the rights that are entitled to them. Part of that is because active individuals may make decisions that delay the process or forestall the process. But any failures of the board in terms of their timely work or lack thereof is a direct result of the decisions that board members have made themselves. It is not a direct result of anything else in the process. The board's membership's responsibility is to function inside the system as it exists, and if they feel the system needs to be changed, the board is empowered to make recommendations for change, whether that's to this body and the Common Council for a legal change, or to the police department for policy changes and procedural changes. But at the end of the day, the board is required to follow that system. I understand that the system probably has room for improvement. All systems have room for improvement. But where we are right now with this board is we're not even meeting the baseline expectation. So we need to ensure we're meeting the baseline expectation, and then we can assess whether or not that baseline expectation is sufficient enough
So basically the office is closed until further notice.
Excuse me?
I said, so basically the office is closed until further notice because you don't have the infrastructure.
No,
to
sir.
do it.
At no point in time have I said this office is closed. The office is not closed. The only aspects of the board work that is not currently happening is the board currently is unable to monitor a complaint or independently investigate a complaint. And the reasons we do not have that ability is a direct result of prior membership's decision-making process. So the new membership that is on the board, which is essentially all brand new membership in the last 4 months or 6 months, is prepared and is ready to move forward. They are waiting because they know the council is getting ready to, or is trying to fill the remaining seats. And they would much rather discuss these matters amongst 9 members and make a decision versus 5 members and make a decision.
Okay.
Excuse
No
me, Mr.
problem.
Anderson, I know we don't want to hold up, but I'm saying about hearing everything that you heard tonight, how do you feel that you could be instrumental in putting what you have in your knowledge and your expertise of doing what you can do to contribute to make sure that this board, is up and running and have the concerns of the community where the community is lacking the trust and the confidence of the board as it stands?
Well, right now, all I can do is submit myself as a body so we can fill the spaces so we can get the work done. And until we can get the number of bodies in place, we can't even really have no real conversation, from what I'm hearing. So administratively, I think the top priority is what we're doing right now, trying to fill these seats. Yes, you're gonna hear some painful stories when you're doing this, but just only because this is a new process. But just to leave you with this, that real people are hurting as a result of all of the red tape and stuff. And we definitely have to try to figure out a way, because people are confused with what they believe the outcome even is with the CPRB, because they just know that the system itself set them out. So so I'm just saying that I appreciate the work that you guys are doing. I realize this is going to be tough work, but I also believe that with my support and involvement, patience, we can get through a lot of the red tape. And with the right people, it'll give some legitimacy back to the program when they see that some of the faces are people that they see every day. So that's what I would hope to bring if I was selected.
Thank you. Now, do you have any other question? I know we kind of really went off, but we learned a lot. I mean, I think it's important. It's important for the public to hear. A lot of good stuff came out tonight. So, and
if I may, before we wrap up, now that I have additional staff, because for the better part of a year, I was the only employee servicing the CPRB. So I was dedicating a significant amount of my time to the day-to-day complaint management versus helping figure out ways to address the problems that the board has been experiencing. So now that I have new staff in place and I'm training them to take over that day-to-day operations, we're also in the process of developing community informational sessions that we will engage with the community to provide better understanding of what the board is, how to access us, what our authorities are, and how the process works.
I would just like to add, when we do these community engagement, that we be mindful that the people who are being victimized the most don't show up to these meetings.
I understand that, sir, but we have to make the best effort that's possible.
No, I agree.
So we will.
We have to
and
go
when-
out, we have to
and-
go out and create the spaces,
Right, and when I
getting
say,
those people that don't come to the traditional places to have a voice.
right,
That's all
and
I'm
when I
saying.
say community,
Yeah,
when I say
I
community,
think that's where the council come in at, you know, because a lot of council members that represent these
Oh, they
districts.
wards and stuff, right.
Yeah, so therefore, once the word get out that these information such as is taking place, that, you know, I think it's our responsibility to make sure our constituents know where, when, and what time, and do our best to get those that, because I have complaints. I have several complaints that the CPRB is lacking, very frustrated,
I'm gonna be honest with you. Personally, I don't know what to do.
But you said
It relates
here,
to my
but you
complaint
said here
personally.
today, and you heard, this is a rebuilding process, and we want to get the right people on this board, right? That's gonna move with integrity and move with the insight of knowing what it takes to have the accountability that's not in place.
And I'd rather you do that slow and take your time than to have to run through a bunch of bodies because people weren't involved and didn't want to. So I'll have no problem with that. In fact, we probably got more information about what's going on through this interview because you said this is being taped, right? So this was a good thing. So next time we don't have to, but yeah, so the more information, the better. I'm eager to get involved. I want to do the work. I'm not frustrated by the process. I know it's going to take some time, even though I'm a victim, but I'm still smiling. I'm a survivor. I'm sorry, let me correct that. And I'm eager to be a bridge that can bring people together, despite my hardships.
Thank you so much. Okay. With that, our interviews
Thank you.
for the night are completed. And I will entertain a motion to go into exec session.
I'm making a motion to move into executive session.
And second by John? Good. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Sorry Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. We were in executive session for looking at potential candidates. We are back out. We've made a decision, and we will be doing background checks and moving forward. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn for the night? Is there a second? Second, all in favor? Aye. Aye. And we are adjourned. Thank you all for joining us, and